Why is everybody nodding their head now about like where I go? What do the schools that I attended and competed and coached at say about me?
I don't know.
A little bit about you.
You know your shit.
Do you know your
I know my shit, whatever that means. I give a good PMR. That's his Phil told everybody.
You can adapt to 2 different styles of debate.
I can adapt to 2 different styles of debate. I can adapt to multiple styles of debate. In a judge adaptation lecture, we're going to talk about what it means to adapt today and why the job of adaptation and the job of debating in front of any critic doesn't change based on the way we normally think about judge adaptation. When I say judge adaptation, what do you think? Who are you adapting for? The judge, of course. No, what type of judge are you adapting for?
the kind that he or she is?
The kind that he or she is. Do you adapt to policy critics that allow you to go as fast as you possibly want?
Yeah.
Is that generally how we think about judge adaptation?
No.
Well, it's honestly hard to adapt to.
Why are they really hard to adapt to?
They're not very much.
They're not really hard to adapt to, right? Debate's a game of politics, as much as it is anything else. You will not win ballots if you cannot play the political game of knowing your judges and knowing who they are and knowing where they come from. They are people just like you. In order to win the debate, yeah, really. Pretty surprising some of the ways I get talked to in the back of the room. I get talked to like I'm an idiot because I don't answer your questions. Because the questions that get asked to me before the round by people that don't know who I am, I'm like, do what you want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they think that I know what I'm doing. I've got 2 degrees, one of them an advanced degree. I've got a third that's potentially a PhD. And I'm at the lower end of the spectrum of the people that judge you. So when we talk about judge adaptation, I'm talking about it from the judge's perspective. What does it mean when people try to adapt to me? And how does that make me feel as a judge? Because when I say judges are human beings just like, what I'm saying is judge adaptation starts with developing relationships with people, right? The disconnect between judges and competitors has to be broken down. Because if you can't break that down, and that's from the judge that you think is a high-flow policy judge to the judge that believes in trichotomy and wants you to debate slowly, right? If you cannot find a way to personalize and be friends with all of those people, then you cannot be successful in this event. Okay? So we're going to talk about some of the things before we talk about some tactics for it. So the first thing in terms of judge adaptation is you have to learn to be social. You have to learn to be social. The first thing that means is introduce yourself. I was talking with a group of debaters from Delta earlier this camp. I don't know their names. I sat there and none of them introduced themselves to me. That's okay, right? We're in camp. Hopefully you'll introduce yourselves to me. But remember, there's like 60 of you. So even after this camp, even after you introduce yourself to me, I will only remember some of you. I remember some of the San Jose State kids from last year because they were in my lab. But I do not remember all of you, right? And that's disappointing. But how many up there are you? So when you come up and say hello, or say hi, Steve, if I don't say your name, if you don't introduce yourself, if you're not constantly trying to introduce yourself and remind me who you are, I will forget. But in order to have and be social with your judge, you have to remind them who you are. The first thing is learn to introduce yourself. It's awkward as all get out. I get that. It really is. But it's better if you go, hi, my name's Steve. I'm from Pacific. Can I ask you about that last round? Or can I talk to you about this? Or can I talk to you about that? And then if they go, yeah, I know who you are. Then we're in a different boat, right? But until they're on that name-to-name basis with you, they will not remember your name, where you come from, who you are. They will only remember what you did in the debate round. You want to move beyond that. Because if you can establish a relationship with the judge, then they're less likely to remember the things you did wrong in a round. They're more likely to remember who you are as a person. That's essentially winning a judge's ballot. Okay? We're people too, and we want to vote for people. We don't just vote for arguments. I know. It's not this whole flow game. There's like a politics to it, where I vote for people that I like, and that are nice debaters, and that are kind people in the world. I do that. I make that apparent. If you're a bad person, or you are mean to other people, I am less likely to vote for you. Okay? So remember, introduce yourself. Try and be social. trying to create friends. 2, ask questions. Some of us, we go home at the end of a debate tournament and we don't want to talk about debate. Our friends don't want to talk about debate with us. They're outside of debate because they don't understand it. And they're just like, I don't care about what you're doing. I'd say find new friends. Alright? But ask questions. Ask questions of judges. Ask questions of people. Always be talking about debate, particularly when you're at a tournament. Okay? Talk about whatever you're competing in with people around you before the round. Because when a judge walks into a round and you all are talking and asking each other questions about each other, right? The judge likes that. It's much easier to come into that situation when I walk into a room and 2 teams are sitting there whispering to one another and there's some glares that might be happening. Like they look up at me and then I'm really awkward, so I'm like, I gotta get all set up. It takes me like 5 minutes and then they're just staring at me, right? Like, this is a perfect time where you can ask questions of the judge. Where do they come from? What school did you go to? Right? So that's the first part about ask questions. The second part is ask specific questions of your judges. How many of you have been told to ask judges questions before the round? A few of you? What questions do you normally ask?
What's your philosophy?
What is your philosophy? I love this one. I like long walks on the beach. I like drinking pina colada in the rain. Right? Like, what is my philosophy? What is my judging paradigm? I judge a lot of things. I judge barbecue competitions. You want to know what I think is a good flavor for barbecue? No.
Is it appropriate to be like, oh, so hey, how's your day been?
Yes.
And just be like,
Yes.
have you heard anything debates today?
Yes, that's exactly what I want to hear when I walk in the back of the room. But that was part 1, right? It's appropriate to say, it's appropriate to ask that question, right? Like, how are you? Do you just walk up to somebody randomly and be like, what do you think about topicality? No, you don't. You say, how are you doing? How is your team doing?
How many questions is like too many questions? I don't want to be like, hi, how are you? How do you feel about ticks? How do you feel about topicality? What's your preferred rate of speed? How do you feel about procedurals? Like, I don't want to do that.
So, we've all had conversations with people, right? You don't just like jump, like, I've been in many a conversation where the first question is like, how are you? And then they just jump straight to business. Do you really think that person cared how you were doing? Or that they had a different agenda? When I say ask questions and personal questions and become friends with your judges, I don't mean just so you can win the ballot. Right? I mean, genuinely ask, how are you doing? How is your day going? You've been busy? You've probably been judging debate, I eat, debate, I eat, debate, I eat. You got a snack on the way. You got an apple sandwich that the judges room gave you. And then you got badgered by people as you came out. Like, our job as judges is to try and make informed decisions while also trying to be personable with you all as debaters. So be personable with us. And then you can start asking questions. So like, okay, now this round's about to start, right? I'm set up and I'm ready to go. Can I ask you some questions about your debate philosophy, your debate paradigm? If they say yes, then have some specific questions ready.
I remember at one tournament I was like talking to one of the judges that was like judging in the round, and then he ended up being like this. Apparently, there's like a national paper airplane throwing contest, and he was like the second best in the country. So then after he taught me how to throw paper airplanes, we were like shooting them at cards. It was fun.
See, those types of things are really great. Why? Because that judge will remember. I don't know your name. Olivia from Point Loma, right? Always throwing paper airplanes with her. They may not remember her name, they may not necessarily remember where she comes from, but they will remember that experience. But that's what I mean, right? That happens at the tournament. We'll talk about how that happens after the tournament here in a second. But to answer the question, how many questions is too many? It depends on how specific your questions are. That's the second thing I'm coming to. We've all asked, what's your debate philosophy? What's your debate paradigm? Have specific questions. If you're on the nay, does it matter what my thoughts about topicality are?
Yes.
Yes, it does. If you're on the af, it might matter if you're not topical. So if you're as an af team, you go, how do you evaluate topicality? Automatic thought is you're not topical. Right? So develop questions to ask of the judge before the round. Do you think the counterplans can be topical? Yes or no? When you evaluate disad case debate, do You evaluate it based primarily on magnitude or probability. And a lot of the responses you're going to get are, it's going to depend on the debate round, right? But asking questions is never a bad idea. It's the type of question that annoys the judge. What's your philosophy, or how do you feel about debate, or what's your background? Those general questions. I mean, I've been doing this since I was a freshman in high school, so for at least 10 years, I can give you a lot of information about my feelings about debate and how I've grown and my background in debate. You don't want to know all that, and I really don't want to share all of that. So have specific questions that you ask before the round. Okay?
I know like a really good question is like how they feel about like partner communication inside the round. Because we have a lot of, at least in SoCal, we have a lot of judges that like are gaming and they like talk as much as you want. Like I don't care as long as I can still hear the other team. And then I have some that are like, do not talk. Like it is ruining like the communication side of like, the round.
Your coaches can help you develop these questions, right? They don't tell you to ask, but a question like, can you communicate with your partner is a good question in Southern California. It's not a good question in Utah, right? It's generally tournaments in Utah or national circuit, they don't care how much you talk, as long as you don't talk over the other team. Or they don't mind if you interrupt your partner to say something just in the middle of their speech. In Northern California and Southern California, that's viewed as rude and generally not okay. So you have to limit that type of thing. So asking that question ahead of time, how do you feel about partner communication in round, is an important question, okay? But ask questions. So we're asking questions, how was your day at the tournament? We're asking questions, what's your judging paradigm, those things. After round, have specific questions, not about the round, right? But about things they think you need to work on better. Don't be afraid to go up and talk to your judge after the round and ask more questions, okay? If the judge has to go, and I can't answer these questions right now, don't take it personally. They probably have to go turn in their ballot and then move on. But the more you ask questions, the more you make yourself seen and known, the more likely they are to remember you and to think that you really want to know, and hopefully you do, how to win their ballot. And that's especially true if you've won the debate round. Because it's typically the team that wins, that walks off, and does not ask questions. We won, so we're gone. Deuces. I got an IE round to go to. Impromptu. Okay? But if those people stuck around and asked questions of me, then they would find reasons why I didn't necessarily think that the win was as clear-cut as they wanted it to be. Okay? So ask after the round as well. Always have specific questions. Always know what you need to work on. And then be asking that of your judges. Okay? The third, take notes. I know these sound like simple things. This is a waste of your time. When I do a lecture at a camp, or I'm giving feedback as a judge, and you don't have a pen out writing notes on your flow, I think you're wasting my time. And it annoys me. Because I'm not sitting there writing on a ballot to give to your coach, and telling you information, giving you feedback about your speech, so that you don't take notes on it. Take notes. Look like an active participant. During the RFD, during the questions, have a piece of paper. You're a debater. You should always have a pen and a piece of paper somewhere. Take notes. Take notes about what you can do better and about that judge. It makes you look like an active participant and makes it easier for you to remember who these people are later on. Finally, and this is going to be the big piece of this lecture, be receptive. What do I mean by be receptive?
Don't ask them questions about what their preferences are and then completely ignore them. Or don't listen to their RFD, like, if you're not going to take the advice.
Right. Be open. You all as debaters are undergraduate students. You all are very bright and intelligent. It's the reason I like doing my job. Because I meet some of the best thinkers that I've ever met. Right? But at the same time, it is unfathomable the number of undergraduate debaters that think that they are more right about the world than people that have been doing this for the last 30 years. Okay? Maybe you don't like value debate. Maybe you don't like critique debate. Maybe your judge doesn't like critique debate and you do. Be receptive to different opinions about debate. Because the only way that these first three seem genuine is if you are receptive and open to different opinions. yeah, that makes debating very difficult because you don't get to do what you want. You don't always get to debate the way you want to. And sometimes you have to debate in formats that you disagree with. But your job as a debater, in order to win the round, is to do one thing and one thing only. What is that? Well, adapt to your judge. Give me the sign on a line that is dotted for you. That means it's not about whether or not you beat the other team on the flow. It's not about whether or not your debate arguments were smarter than the other team. None of that matters in the debate round. None of it. It all comes second to who I want to vote for. How do you get me to sign my ballot for you? If that means I want you to do interpretive dance, maybe you do interpretive dance. Okay? That means you step outside your comfort zone and try and do new things. You step outside your comfort zone a little bit and do new things. But be receptive to different approaches to debate. Because while we are teaching a particular style of debate at this camp, not everybody would agree with that. Okay? So you're going to take some of these notes, you're going to go back to your teams, your coach is going to tell you, no, I don't want you making that argument. I'm going to tell the Pacific debaters in this room, you're not going to debate that way. Okay? But the one thing to change that is, debating that way in front of that critic when you the round. If so, then I need to be receptive as a coach. Okay? So be receptive. Also being receptive means not encouraging underage drinking. I'm not encouraging partying. But be receptive to hanging out with people at tournament hotels, outside of debate rounds. Normally we like to go back to our prep room and hang out with our friends at our school. And that's great. Really great. I have some of my best friends. Emily Sheldon is one of my best friends because we debated together. Okay? But if you aren't receptive to people that you just debated, to hanging out with them, to hanging out with judges, then it's just you and the people you met on your campus. And it doesn't become a community. So be receptive to being part of the community. And if you feel like a wallflower, that's okay. Because the wallflower will eventually migrate into the group. I'm a wallflower. I will sit on the edge for a long time. It'll be very awkward if you see me at like a tournament or hang out at a hotel. I'm just going to sit and don't say anything. That's just my personality. I understand it might make you feel uncomfortable. You got to say things. But say hi, come and talk, do those types of things. Okay? That makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I have people in this community, and it'll make you feel good. People do it to you that care about your life, that want to know who you are, that want to introduce themselves, make friendships. Okay? So all these things about being social have nothing necessarily to do with how you debate. Judge adaptation is not necessarily about how you debate. It's about getting to know the person in the back of the room and hoping that they see you as a person just in the same way that you see them as a person. A lot of flowery stuff to start with. Okay? Second, they want to talk about develop a judge book. Does everybody know what a judge book is?
A book of judges.
Facebook is a book of faces, I agree.
In their paradigms and philosophies, I guess.
Okay. So it's a general book, right, that you keep. So it could be a Word document, it could be a wiki blog, it could be anything like that. Start developing a judge book, okay? There's some things you're going to need to know in a judge book. But first, it's obvious, what is their name? When I left to go to SIU, most people in Northern California circuit still know who I was. Now I come back, most people go, you're Emily Sheldonsburg. Right? That's okay, because people know Emily. But when I say know somebody's name, start finding people and where they come from, what their background is. Because their name goes with their school and personal history. How many of you know where Jeff Tony's dated? Pacific. How many of you know where Phil Sharp debated?
It's Western Washington.
Western Washington. Only the debaters that debated for these people know where they're from. Okay? Does everybody know where Jared Anderson debated? Huh? Los Rios, right? Sac City. Another debater of Jared's. But if you don't know the general background or school that these people came from, then you don't know what their history in debate was, right? So in your judge book, don't just start cataloging, okay, so this is Steve Farias from SIU. Okay, yeah, I coach at SIU now, but I was at Pacific for 6 years. That probably had as big an impact on my debate view as being at SIU for 3 years did. Okay? High school not as relevant, but sometimes people go that in depth. So get a name and an association with that. Does everybody know who Phil Sharp's partners were? Does anybody know who Jeff Toney's partners were? Kathleen Bruce is one of them. Other partners? Prince White. Anybody know Prince White? Francis and Jeff debated together. See? You don't know their partners, so you don't know necessarily how they debated together, right? I don't know Jared's partner. Does everybody know Jared Anderson's partner? Everybody knows Emily Sheldon's partner. Right? But do you know her partners before that? No. And that's okay. But as you're developing a judge book, you want to start getting their personal history. Who did they debate with? Because it'll give you an understanding of their debate style potentially. Because if you know how to debate in front of Emily, then you'll have at least some understanding of how to debate in front of me. Right? Emily and I see debate much differently, but at least you'll have something to go off of. So then the third thing that you have to start doing is, of course, the ambiguous approach to debate. Okay? What's one tried and true method to find somebody's approach to debate? Ask questions. Okay? Go up to judges for the round. Remember we were just talking about asking questions, right? You go to your parent, you see who you're debating, you see the team you're debating, and then you see the judge. Go find that person if you can. How do you feel about these issues? How do you feel about this? Because honestly, those questions, those specific questions that you want to ask before the round starts, really become irrelevant if you don't do it before prep. How do you feel about topicality? Well, I evaluate topicality based primarily on abuse and not competing interpretations. There goes that framework for T that I prepped for 20 minutes. Right? Are you really going to change your strategy that drastically? If you ask that question before the round, probably not. Because you got nothing else. So go find your judges before the round, before prep, and ask questions. That's another tried and true way of finding your approach to debate. If I asked you to find my approach to debate right now, what would you do? Ask other people. You could ask other people, asking questions, I encompass that.
Google?
Thank you. You all are millennials, right? You all have had access to the internet since you were like 6.
Facebook
right?
stock.
Facebook stock. Use the internet.
Don't
the
lie.
internet knows all.
Everyone's done it. Facebook stock
Right?
judge.
The first thing you should always do, if you can't find the judge, is type in their name in Google and search judge philosophy. I got like 6 up there. You know what's really fun? Doing it for somebody that's been judging for 30 years and seeing their high school judging philosophy from when they were first out to now. It's really interesting. This is a debate key thing. Like I do this in prep time sometimes. Like as a coach, when you're done prepping your team, you do some funny things. Like let's see what this judge really thinks. Those are things that you can do in the down. But use the internet. Figure out their approach to debate. Okay? The internet knows all. Finally,
Just debate in front of them.
notes on RFPs. It doesn't just have to be debate in front of them, though. When you're out of a debate tournament, do you go watch debate rounds?
Yep.
Some of you do, right? Some of you are like, yeah, I kind of want to just go hang out. That's fine. But that's prime time real estate for research. Not about whatever the other team's doing or anything else, right? And you can support your teammates. I always advocate going and watching your team, supporting them. Don't stack rooms, but go support them. But you get 3 judges, 2 teams. You don't got to make an ass out of yourself to figure out what they really like and don't like. Okay? So go watch rounds and take notes on people's RFPs as much in rounds you debate as in rounds that you're not a part of. That's what I mean by taking notes constantly. Always taking notes. Because the kid in the back of the room that then comes up to me after I just gave an RFP and goes, hey Steve, you said this, right? And starts writing down things, interests me more than the debater that just did. Because that tells me they're paying attention, they're asking me questions around. They weren't even debating it. They cared about what my opinion was. These are all things you've probably known before, right? They're all good. So how do you adapt in front of judges? What are some of the things you do? What are some of the things you've done to adapt? Or been told you to adapt? Huh?
Ask paradigm.
Ask the paradigm, right? Okay, but like specific things. Change your speed.
If they hate political DAs, don't run political DAs.
If they hate politics, don't run politics. What else?
Throw out my 3 topicalities.
You're not running topicality in front of this critic, right? What else? Structure, okay.
Collapse to certain voters.
Collapse to voters.
Make jokes.
Make jokes. I had to be funny around. Ask Emily about a Wonder Bread joke she once had to make around. It was not good. She's not funny at all, but it was funny to watch.
Like some to just give like bonus speaker points to make the joke that's on their wikis. Like on their wiki, they're like, "Oh, say cat between every like 2 words and only 30 speaks."
Yes. Where's Jacob? Everybody knows Jacob. I don't know his first name.
Lucidity.
Christensen, yeah. Oh, this is a golden round here at Pacific. I told him the night before that if he could find a way to work in placidity into his speech 5 times, he would get 30 speaker points. He did it 4, right? But he didn't even get it the 5th. We only got 29.5. But like, there are certain preferences that are good preferences, right? Or I don't know if anybody knows Amanda Ozaki from Concordia. Her parents always bring me spam musubi beef. I'm Hawaiian, so as a mixed race Hawaiian, I love spam. I love spam musubi beef. So her parents would always bring it to me when they would come to the tournament, and I told her for every tournament they did it, the next time I judge her, she'd get a 30. And I didn't judge her for 2.5 years until the second half of this year, and she got 30s at nationals for 2 rounds just because I was like, you get 30s. So yeah, that's one way of adapting as well, doing positive things. Okay? I know that was a long story. What is never said about never said about adapting? Nobody ever say do not run on case arguments and turn the case? Never say don't run disads? Has that ever been told to you as a way of adapting? No. Nobody ever said don't have a plan? Okay?
Yeah.
The first debate tactic to adapting to any critic is basics. I want to break this down a little bit in a second. But be good at the basics. I know we've done lectures about critiques and theory, and you're excited to do new things, and that's great. Being excited about those new things is great. But if you can't run a case turn in front of me, then I don't want to hear the critique you ran. Know the basics. Basics of debate. The affirmative has to say something should change, and the negative says, no, that's dumb. It gets more nuanced, of course, but be good at the basics. Okay? So the first debate tactic to adapting is know case and disad debate. Know the case and disad debate. Know how to run a disad, how to weigh disads. You will never, ever be told by somebody to adapt by saying don't run disads. Okay? It might be don't speak quickly, so you don't get 3 disads. Right? You might only get 1 disad and a whole lot of case debate. But at no time was I ever told or did I ever tell a debater, you don't get disads in this debate. You don't get advantages in this debate. Okay? So be good at the basics, because you can shorten arguments and keep warnings. You can't force a critic to like the argument you're going to make. Okay? The second thing, and similar to the first, but you can't do it until you're good at the first, remove tools from your toolbox. When we were at SIU, we've won Point Loma the last 3 years. And a coach from another team came up to me one year, very good team, nationally competitive, won a national championship in the last 4 years. They came up and they were asking me, it's like, how do you all go 6-0 at Point Loma? We just can't do it. It's the judges. Like, they just don't know what they're doing. It's not hard for us, because we don't allow our debaters to run counterplans at Point Loma. You don't get a counterplan, you don't get a critique, and you don't get to run topicalities. I had eliminated them. You don't get them. Can you without all of your tools? if you can, you are a much better off debater. Because your ability shows that when I give you all these tools, yeah, if you need a tool to do it, right, you've got all these things. So you've got a screwdriver and a power drill and a hammer and all these different tools. I'm not really like a handy person, so that's not the extent that I know. Okay? But if I remove the hammer and the drill and all you have is a screwdriver, can you still figure out how to put your entertainment center together? I hope so tonight. I really do, because I got to put mine together without it. But can you put that together and win the debate round? That is why you remove tools from your toolbox. Do it strategically for yourself. Go to a tournament and say, we're just going to run disads and case. Go to a tournament and say, we're only going to run one disad and a counterplan. Because when you get to nationals, if you think about all these tournaments as a lead up to nationals, whether it's FIRO-PI or MPDA or MPTE, you have now put yourself in different situations to make it so that when you have to adapt, you've done it before. You force yourself to do it. You know how just to debate simple. You know how to debate complex. Okay? So remove tools from your toolbox. And do it with a reason. The reason we remove counterclaims theory and critiques at Point Loma is because a majority of that judging pool is split on these issues. Right? Some of them like case, some of them don't. Some of them like counterclaims, some of them don't. Some of them like topical counterclaims, don't like topical counterclaims. Some of them won't vote on theory, carte blanche, like they just don't vote on topicality. Some of them love the theory debate. So when you're in out rounds and you've got 3 judges, the easiest way to craft a strategy is to remove those tools and just go with what you know. So nail the basics, and then remove the hammer from your toolbox, okay? Second, be able to audibly change your rate and your cadence. Okay? This is a speed question. When I say rate, what do I mean? How fast you can go. How many words per minute? Right? How fast you speak. That's generally where we go with speed. But cadence is just as important. I'm going to give you a patented Todd Graham tactic. Okay? Everyone know who Todd Graham is? Huh? No, you don't have any idea who Todd Graham is the head coach at Southern Illinois University, has most national championships, been a coach in the parliamentary circuit, and also has 2 national championships in policy. Todd knows what he's talking about. Okay? You know what Todd has every one of his debaters do? It's called SSSG. Stop, slow, stop, go. Notice how I stop and go on. Take a pause until every one of you looks up. So changing your rate isn't just about slowing down, right? Because I can slow down and keep talking at a constant rate so that I never stop and we're always going the same lecture. And that means my cadence never changes. And that's actually a lot harder to follow because then you don't have time and pen time to put down the information you need. And I just have to take short breaths instead of very large breaths because I'm speaking at such a rapid rate. Then I do that, right? Which enables you to catch up. Cadence is just as important as rate. Do SSSGs in every one of your speeches. It doesn't matter how slow you are speaking. It matters the cadence. Do it on an argument that matters. If you stop talking, it's going to get real awkward. And people are going to want to look up and listen to what you have to say. They might not write it down immediately, but they will look up guaranteed because we are so trained to think that if there's a moment, a second, it is not being used in the debate round, it is inefficient. It's just not true. Adapting to judges in terms of speed is all about changing your cadence in a way that is easy. Be deliberate. Speak like President Obama. Okay? If you can do that, then you have the ability to debate in front of any critic. Then you can start teaching yourself how to speed up, how to speak quicker, how to debate in front of policy critics by doing certain drills, like reading files with pens in your mouth, and adding blueberries, blackberries in between every word. Always with the berries. I don't understand it, but I hear berries everywhere I go. It's like, can't you use another word like lemons and oranges? Like, I'm a citrus person myself. Okay? But seriously, read something and just add blueberries, blackberries in between it, and you'll be able to speed up because you'll know the word. So change your rate of guess and change your cadence more. Debaters who change their cadence are very much more persuasive and have an ability to inflect and change the judge's decision based on the arguments they emphasize. Okay? General rules. So we talked about being social. We talked about developing a judge book. I'm giving you 2 basic strategies. That's all you need to adapt. Because when we talk about adaptation, like I said, we often think about slowing down and debating for the calm critic. Okay? I want to dispel the notion of the calm critic. Your job is not to debate how you want it, to convince me to sign the line that is dotted for you. That's the only thing that determines the win at the end of the debate round. Yes, sometimes there's some whack decisions like, I didn't like your tie. You can't avoid that. But what you can do, always talk to judges intelligently. It doesn't matter how much you disagree with their views on debate. It doesn't matter if you think they understand contemporary debate. No. It doesn't matter if you disagree with the notion they believe in trichotomy. None of that matters. What matters is how you talk to them in the round and how you debate in front of them. Too often, I'm on panels with people or in rounds where I get talked to like I'm dumb. You like being talked to like you're dumb? You like when your mom's like, oh, honey, it's okay. No, actually, Benadryl's very good for you. It's going to help you get over your sickness. No, you don't like that. I'm an adult. Not like an adult. Right? I don't like being coddled. Maybe you're the type of person who likes being coddled. Maybe that's how you just talk to people every day. Please don't have a conversation. Okay? But seriously, talk to people like they're intelligent. These are people with degrees, people that have done the things that you're doing right now in your life. People that do research and teach. They've studied these things. They also did research in prep time. Okay? I didn't just sit there wondering what I was going to have for lunch. So talk to me like I'm intelligent. Talk to all your critics as if they're intelligent people, because in general they are. Whether or not you agree with their political beliefs, their beliefs on debate, that's a whole other discussion. But they are generally intelligent people about the world. You should talk to them as such. Okay? Number 2. How many of you have debated in out rounds? Okay, now how many of you have debated in out rounds where on a panel you had 2 judges you really liked and 1 you didn't? What was the strategy you went? What was the general strategy you decided to do?
Lowest common denominator.
Right, you want to do the lowest common denominator. But in general, people are like, we're just going to punt to that judge. See ya. Deuces. I don't need to leave your mouth. Okay? Never. You never punt a critic. You know what happens when I'm in a round and I see a critic that gets punted and I'm on a panel? For me, when I watch this happen, or if I know that I'm being punted, I don't get angry. Well, I mean, sometimes it's kind of annoying. I'm like, whatever, I understand the strategic decision you're making. I just think it's a poor strategic decision. You have just said, I don't need your ballot. I'm going to guarantee I win those other 2. Good luck. Chances are you're going to split those 2, and I matter more. The minute that you punt a critic, they matter the most in that round because they become a coin flip. Either they like you or they're just like deuces, and now you got to win both of them. And that's just difficult. It means to not adapt for them, right? So in terms of adaptation, you have like, it's Jeff, Bill, myself. Okay? And someone is like, I don't understand Phil Sharp. Deuces. See you. I'm going to win Jeff and Steve's ballots. That's not just brash. You have a lower percentage of winning that debate. Okay? Because here's what's going to happen, right? both teams generally are going to think, in this instance, deuce is Phil. So both teams are going to punt Phil. Phil becomes a point toss. However, let's say that you're like, I'm not going to punt Phil, and the other team does. Guess whose ballot you just won? Phil Sharp. You got one in the bank. I got one. I just got to win one of the others. Don't got to win both. You just got to win 1 out of 2. So instead of creating a situation where you've got to win 2 out of 2, you create a situation where you just got to win 1 more. Okay? So never punt a critic. It does you no good. Yeah.
What about in a situation where you have 3 judge panel, and you know 2 of them absolutely love DHUme as like an impact / internal science, or one of them absolutely hates it? Like he'll drop you as soon as you see it.
I've never seen that on judge philosophy. Who here has had a judge that just won't listen to an argument? Said, I will drop you for running a DHUme impact.
Tim Elizondo.
Seriously, yeah. That happens.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
thing.
dehume is like getting people
Then
dropped.
what do?
Don't say that word.
Don't run DHUme.
Do the other 2 not vote for
Humed
big
it.
stick impacts?
Like, you just say a different word.
But do the other 2 not like big stick impacts? Right? They'll vote for something else, so just don't run that impact. That's what you do. Don't punt a critic. I've never seen that. Tim, I got to talk to him. Tim Elizondo was the one that made Emily Sheldon make a Wonder Kids joke, by the way. Ask him about how he used to make Emily make jokes around. It's funny.
Emily Sheldon Wonder Kids joke?
Yeah. Ask him about it. He might remember, he might not. Okay? But, yeah, you don't punt that person. Fine. I'll figure out a way to find impacts that aren't dehumanization. If you can't figure out how to win all 3 ballots, that's your problem. You are intelligent individuals. You do this on a regular basis, I hope. You think about arguments. You think about new arguments. If you can't figure out something other than dehumanization, then really you're going to lose that out round anyways. Do not punt a critic. The coach is going to give you advice. We're just going to punt this person. I encourage you to be like, no. That's a harder job. Make your job as easy as possible. Someone up front said that the way you do that is lowest common denominator. I think that's one way of doing it. We're going to give you another way of doing it. The third general rule. This will help you adapt to every judge ever. Whether it's Nietzsche and you're rolling dice, it's capitalism and you just don't like cap, or it's case. Keep it simple. No, I won't call you all stupid. Okay? But keep it simple. It's the biggest, most fundamental rule about debate. We overly complicate things. How many of you were watching the demo debate yesterday at the second one? I was judging.
No.
Okay, well, the poem debate. Okay?
No.
Here's how we simplify this debate. Dominant ways of talking formulate the way we think about the world. We want to give you another way of talking. That's the debate. They added a lot of things in there. A poem you could read. It's rhizomatic. Jumps around. Does a dance. Helps your mind think incoherently. Whatever they want to say. They were essentially saying, here's another way to talk. That's all. And if you could simplify any of your debates, whether it's at the beginning of your strategy, okay, or in the middle of the debate, you're ahead. Because you've not overly complicated things. So there's 2 ways that you do this in the debate round that I want you to adopt. That I hope to watch you do in practice in rounds of the tournament. 1, at the beginning of your rebuttal, have 1 sentence why you win. Now, I win for 3 reasons. No. That's not a sentence. Okay? That's a sentence with a colon, and then it's followed by 3 parts. 1 sentence why you win the debate. If you can't do that, then do you really know why you win that debate? Develop 1 sentence. If you are doing a rebuttal, try and give 1 sentence why you win the debate. The second, okay, is identify your strategy early on. That means when you say, I have one off, do I need 3 sheets of paper for it's a critique. I'm about to hear it anyways. Why does it matter? I have 3 off. Just had 1, just had 2, counterplan. Right? Identify your strategy early. Make it known to the judge that you know what your strategy is. Because more often than not, the judge is going to question really whether or not you really understand what that strategy is intended for. Right? The counterplan, dis-add strategy is intended to kick one of the dis-adds, maybe kick both the dis-adds, and go for the counterplan. Okay? If you don't believe in unconditionality. Or if you believe in unconditionality. Okay. Okay? But identify that to the judge sometime in the debate. Look, judge, here was our strategy from the beginning of the debate. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew how we wanted to execute it. We were intelligent about the way we were going to execute it, and we did. That makes you look credible. It makes you look like you understand debate and you understand what you're debating. So if you can give me one thesis while you're winning the debate, you can identify your strategy immediately in the rebuttal of how they actually thought they knew the topic and they knew what they were doing when they approached the topic. Okay? Do those 2 things, you keep it simple, and you will be able to adapt to any judge. This is why critique debaters have a hard time running their critical arguments in front of judges, because they don't understand they don't need an alternative, and they can just run those arguments on case. You perpetuate a system that abuses those in poverty. That's bad. There's an impact. I just ran CAP. Don't need an alternative. Don't need a framework. Don't need any of that. But I got a link and an impact. You made it worse. You justify colonial interventions in other countries. We're going to Iraq. That's bad because here's what happens. There's your FEMIR critique. Without the alternative in the framework. Okay? Keep it simple. You'll be able to adapt to any judge. Do I have any questions? Keep it simple, Stevie. Yes, principal. So how are you all going to debate from it?
I won't pump a critic.
Well, I hope not. I might be the only one.
Who punted you? What reason did they punt?
I mean, there are plenty of times where I'm on a panel with people like theory, and I just generally am not the biggest fan of theory. I evaluate it differently than a lot of people. So they went to theory, and I was like, I gotcha. Usually that decision's made later on in the debate round, but going into it, I mean, I don't know why you're going to have much theory.
I actually heard a judge say they'd be open to new arguments in the rebuttals.
Okay.
So it's like, how much leeway does a judge have versus like the rules? I know, exactly. He basically said he'd be down for anything.
Okay. So
it's like, can judges operate outside the rules of the
game? Judges can do whatever they want. I can vote for you because I don't like what you're wearing. I can vote for you for whatever reason I want, or against you for whatever reason I want. Right? There's this myth that judges are, what do they call it, tabula rasa, and don't have beliefs about the world. It's ridiculous. Go ahead, run the critique in front of Will. See how that operates for you. Right? Like, we have views about the world. We are people. And we can make decisions unilaterally. So what do you do when the judge says, I think it's okay for you to make new arguments in the rebuttals? Make some new arguments. And then, on the other side, go back to the basics. You're not allowed to make new arguments in the rebuttal, and here's 3 reasons why it's bad. You should discount all of them. That is an argument. It's not an argument that was in any of your constructives. If you make that argument in the PMR in front of that critic and go, that's not okay, and then go, well, I said it was okay to do it, actually, you're just not going to evaluate my argument. Right? That's what you remember, that they didn't evaluate that argument. Don't argue with them. Don't challenge them. Right? But go back to the basics. If you can stick to the basics, you should be able to adapt to any of these wanky things, like you're not allowed to say dehumanization. Okay, Will's going to talk to you about the courts.
Give Steve a round of applause, huh?